Okay, so first, I've had some epiphanies. While I've been traveling through the Philippines and Malaysia, I've come to the obvious realization that I don't need to have long format videos while I'm backpacking around. Short form videos would make things easier for me, so I'm not scrambling to get content finished. That way I can become more consistent and reliable, not only to you, but myself as well. Next order of business, like I said, I'm in Malaysia. I stayed in the Philippines for a month before I dropped south due to a surprise earthquake and unfortunate immigration circumstances. I'll make a video on that when I get the chance. I'm safe and sound. Malaysia is slept on, in my opinion. Clean, orderly, and it only rains hard once a day for a couple minutes, like compared to other Southeast Asian countries that they get rained on and flooded out, which makes the streets and roads muddy and uncrossable. You know, it'll ruin the shoes, the socks, the fit, whatever you're wearing. It's lighting up right now here in Malaysia. So after this video, I might just go out. But yeah, I mean, all that's for another video. I'll discuss that later. And finally, I've been having a time and a half celebrating Halloween in a culture different from America. I'd say Malaysia really has the spirit in some places, mainly KL, Kuala Lumpur, which brings me to my most important point. It's Spooktober, and you know what that means. Halloween is upon us. Yeah, yeah, y'all peep the mask. Bought this at a shop here in Malaysia. I bought a couple things. Got like this long cape, hot as fuck. I'm never probably probably never gonna wear it honestly. Um, it's just so damn humid outside, and it goes down to my ankles. I got like a little sink. Yeah, this bad boy is long. It's might as well wear it for the video. I got the AC blowing anyway, you know. Yeah, how we looking? Bang. I wore this fit at Nights of Fright in KL, Kuala Lumpur. Um, but like I had to like give over my mask. Also, I lied. I didn't bring a cape or these. It was hot and it was raining, but still a good time. It's just yeah. I think they want the people visiting to not get mixed up with the actual actors and whatever. But it was a good time. Yeah, I liked it. Enjoyed it. I'll keep the cape on for the video. It's whatevs. This Halloween, like every Halloween, like most Halloweens for me, I'm talking Goosebumps reruns, warnings on Big Dick Randy, corny costumes, 2 week long benders, just complete degeneracy. It's the season to start being the disgusting fat freak I know people can be, because the real deal is right around the corner. Fourth quarter, back to back holidays. And remember, the only way to have a good holiday is to participate in the holiday. I'm not saying you gotta go out and buy crazy merchandise, you know, but a scary movie here or there wouldn't hurt. Some tricks or treat wouldn't hurt you. A little scare fest won't erase that ore farming you got going on. Speaking of ore farming, I saw a Pennywise edit the other day. That was hot shit, I'm not gonna lie. These modern horror movie monsters are getting love. They're making Pennywise look like they're making him look more menacing than Jason. And yeah, my boy Jason, not that sociopath Michael Myers or that PDF file Freddy Krueger. Krueger. Yeah, Jason's iconic theme and presence is leagues above theirs, in my opinion. Fight me in the comments. I don't know. Now, some good horror films have been dropping this year. Some familiar and some not so familiar. Remick from Sinners, The Usual Xenomorph Slop, The Conjuring, Weapons. The Long Walk was hot. Whew. Primitive War wasn't too bad. I got that. That was on Amazon. Surprisingly good. That's what I wish Jurassic Park was these days. But all in all, not a bad year. I am happy with the attention given to horror, thrillers, and psychological thrillers this year. Honestly, the real thriller is the Civil War brewing overseas back in America. I'm actually on the edge of my seat when I get news from back home. Motherfuckers just can't seem to live in harmony. Crazy. Today's topic: werewolves or vampires? Which is better? I know there's a long-standing rivalry between these two factions that have broken families apart, killed loves, tortured souls, but I'd be happy to weigh my 2 cents on this priceless argument. I seriously think to decide on which is better, you would have to decide on which version of supernatural creatures you're picking from. They all have similar but also very different advantages and weaknesses given to them by their creators. Like pros and cons that make them overpowered or just really lame. For example, if we're picking between some of the more popular universes, which I'll be doing, like I'm talking like Van Helsing, Skyrim, The Witcher, Underworld, Twilight, uh, that new video game Vampyr, the recent Vampyr game, and Dragon Age. There are like things to consider for all these creatures, like because I'll be honest, I like the wolves more because I like the wolves more. Always have. I'm starting with the vampires. Got ya. I like to save the best for last. Not that you would know anything about delayed gratification or anything. You're probably a filthy vampire lover. No, I'm just kidding. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because so am I. Depending on which time of the year, honestly. Shout out to Marceline, the Vampire Queen. No bias here. Starting off strong with some of my favorites. Dragon Age. The vampires in this universe. The advantages they are long-lived. They have access to blood magic and glamour and mind influences. Disadvantages. Feeding cause social standing. The Templars oppose them. The Chantry opposes them. Whatever. As a side note, they have like rare quest-driven lore elements, and their powers actually do feel like a toolkit. It's very very useful, flexible abilities. The werewolves in this universe, the Dragon Age universe, they have brutal physical power. You're gonna hear me saying, I'm gonna be saying that a lot. The enhanced durability and healing, strong in packs. Disadvantages for the werewolves in the Dragon Age universe: they have a loss of control during their transformations. The social and I guess police pressure. They are viewed as dangerous, obviously, but they're not like a broad faction. Skyrim vampires. Advantages: they have to drain a life to heal. Their stealth and magic variants are pretty expansive and powerful. Uh, and I play like many hundreds of hours in the game, whether that's on my PlayStation or Switch. If you make it to the Vampire Lord form, it adds like mobility and more power, gives you a much more like just overall powerful vampire because you're a Vampire Lord. The disadvantages for the Skyrim vampires: they have the sunlight vulnerability, social stigma of being a vampire. Like people aren't gonna be cool with like a vampire walking around like just sucking blood because they know they got to get the blood from somewhere. They don't want it to be them, or also you're like a monster walking around, and the feeding can attract a lot of attention, negative attention, obviously. For the werewolves in Skyrim, I'm not gonna lie, I like the werewolves in Skyrim. They got that beast form that boosts the melee power, uh, stamina, the natural armor, rapid healing also. Disadvantages: the transformation is conspicuous. They have limited magical options in the beast form. I will say for the werewolves in the Skyrim universe, if you are able to, I think down the downguard path, it expands the werewolf path and its trade-offs or whatever. But like instead of like shouting and intimidating your foes, if you expand the perk tree, it'll like go from you can shout and intimidate, and you can summon like 2 werewolves alongside you, like ghost werewolves who will help you fight. They'll be there for a while too. Yeah, and then what else? Yeah, it heals you more the more you like level up for the werewolves. Just just become like stronger in every aspect. The more you feed, which is a disadvantage. You have to feed a lot on creatures. But another perk, if you unlock it, is like you don't have to feed on like human beings or people. You can feed on animals and still level up the same. You don't get the same XP or points or skill amount as you would from eating animals as you would like feeding on a human. So that makes you level up a lot faster and unlocks those perks. For the Twilight vampires, the from the Stephanie Myers series, they have this damn near OP, I would say. Not OP, but like Yeah, yeah, just make me a vampire in this universe. They have these superhuman speed, strength, their senses, their mental and physical discipline is up there. Like you don't have to eat humans. You can supplement that for like another creature. They have the vegetarian option to avoid humans, which is very nice. I don't think they're as powerful that they would be if they just ate the human, but it keeps them alive. You know, still more powerful than the average human. And honestly, from the actual series, like they were, like they're still like like they could still like go blow for blow with vampires who are actually consistently killing humans and shit. So like no, they don't really have to eat the humans. Disadvantages: they have the sunlight danger, but honestly, I don't. You know, like all they do to me, like if all you do is glow in the sun when the sun hits you as a vampire, that's like, bro, go get a modeling contract or some shit. Like I know, you know, you got like the social and ethical constraints, which is another disadvantage. Like just like what is it? The Venatori don't want to like be exposed and be like, oh, vampires actually exist. Like that makes sense. That's like the only bad thing about exposing yourself to humans. But I mean, yeah, like doesn't seem like the sunlight harms them. And another disadvantage is they actually need to feed uh, in order to keep living. Um, but yeah, I mean, like I said, they can supplement that for a vegetarian option. The werewolves in this universe, you know, they're like a bunch of frat dudes. I swear. Which when I was younger, I loved them for it, bro. Like hell yeah, like, you a werewolf? Like join us, man. Come on, get up in this motherfucker. Anyway, the werewolves have like great physical power, heightened senses, pack-centric coordination. The disadvantages of these guys, they got like the obvious like anger issues, which aren't cool, of course. They got like the full moon, seasonal triggers, conflicts with humans and vampires alike, just because they are a fucking aggressive wolf, like hot headed. I don't think like I don't think they're hot headed all the time, but they're very like prone to aggro, and they're very like pack dynamic, like a very pack dynamic uh, faction. So the underworld vampires, they have the eternal life, living for a long time, refined political maneuvering. Like, of course, if you're gonna like, live for a long time, you're gonna have like some political influence. They're swift. They have like lethal combat, very bloodlines, of course. Disadvantages to these underworld vampires: the sunlight is damaging or lethal to them. They have the rigid clan politics. Like I just remember them being like very, very strict with their like politics. Of course, they want to control everything. Vampires, bro. Like, but yeah, and then they all like the reliance on the blood as well. So yeah, they're very like control freaks. So the werewolves or the lichens in this universe, which also don't get on my ass. I know some people are gonna be like, well, not all werewolves are lichens and not all lichens are werewolves, but I just what I mean when I say just they're a fucking, lichen or werewolf. Like, like I'm imagining like that bipedal wolf hulking form, which, you know. But anyway, like depending on the universe, you can call them a werewolf or a lichen. In the underworld, they like to call them lichens. Whatever. You know what I mean. Like so for the werewolves in this universe, for the underworld universe, they have the raw physical might, rapid transformation, strong pack coordination. Disadvantage: I don't remember them having sunlight vulnerability, but when I looked it up, I think they had like a regress into their human form or whatever. I would have to rewatch it though, but I do remember them being like very, very powerful. Like actually putting up a fight against these vampires who are control freaks to say the least. But yeah, another disadvantage: their pack structure can like limit independent tactics. I do remember like whenever they would transform into werewolves or lichens, it would be like a lot of them, and they're not coming at you like a normal wolf. Like they are aggressive, they're aggro, and they are like a calamity, just coming at you like a wave of fucking water, just destroying everything and whatever they like. You're not stopping that. Like a bunch of werewolves versus a bunch of vampires. I got it on the werewolves just because like they are like a they're beasts. Like they are fucking beasts. Like they're both monsters, but the werewolves are just they're like I feel like you shooting them, they don't care that they're getting shot. They're gonna go at you, and they can probably barely not even feel that. Like a regular human can't feel shit happening to them when they got like the adrenaline pumping and they're upset, angry. Think about a hulking werewolf just coming at you. It wants you. Like it wants to tear you limb from limb. That thing ain't stopping. So yeah, like I would, yeah, like independently, yeah, you can probably take it on because it's it's a dumb werewolf. It's not dumb, but it has like a one track mind, being like, I'm gonna get this person no matter what. Logic goes out the window. But yeah, like one on one, you can probably defeat it if you are to that caliber, like a vampire, like a hunter, whatever, of werewolves. But yeah, no, a horde of them, like yeah, no, that pack is tearing anything apart. Cool. And next we have Van Helsing vampires. So advantages for these vampires in the Van Helsing universe is like they have like centuries of power and intellect, hypnotic control capabilities, formidable combat skills. Just because they've been alive and hunting the skills for forever, so that's explanatory. Disadvantages of these Van Helsing vampires: they have the vulnerability to the uh, holy or sacred countermeasures, the dependence on blood as well. Werewolves in the Van Helsing universe. They made these look very cool in that '04 Van Helsing movie. They have that raw physical power, relentless pursuit and brute force. I was talking about early with the other vampires or lycans dash werewolves. Cool. For disadvantages for the werewolves in the Van Helsing universe, they have the vulnerability to silver or holy weapons. And they have they got that like berserker rage. Again, what I was talking about, like brute force and berserk rage. Nasty combo, nasty combo. But it is ways to get over that if you are like intellectual. Like if you know how to fool, if you know your enemy, you know how to get them off kilter emotionally, then you're already in there. But you gotta be competent too. Like just can't. Cool. Vampyr vampires, which is that new game I was talking about. Like advantages for the vampires in this universe. The the more you feed, the more you feed, the more power you get. So you're feeding a lot, the more powers you're gonna get. It can expand your repertoire. All that. The blood is a resource and it can influence others and blend into society more, giving you more influence. The disadvantages to being a vampire in this universe is the feeding harms the victims, of course. The humanity and hunger mechanics raise moral stakes, and you have a risk of being discovered. You know, which makes sense. Like the more people you're feeding on, the more powers you're going to gain, but also it's going to put you at a higher risk of being discovered and hunted. The werewolves in this universe: strong physical power, speed, brutal melee combat capabilities. Um, Disadvantages: transformations are disruptive and conspicuous. They have the limited magical options, hunted by authorities and rival factions. I guess no one likes the Lycan. The Lycan threat in Vampyr is it's significant and treated as like dangerous. They are treated as like dangerous adversaries. So you know, cool. One of my favorites, the Witcher vampires. Advantages: they're highly intelligent. They can take a human form and blend in, feeding fuels their vitality and magic. And their one thing I cannot forget is like this one. I forgot what the vampire's name. I think it was like an elder vampire. I think, but when Geralt found him in this cave, he couldn't even like. I think as the player, like the option was not like kill him. Like you could not kill this vampire. It gave you like two dialogue options to like influence him to like talk him down or whatever, like get the fuck out the cave basically. And if you felt those two, like it wasn't even like the vampire would like, all right, yeah, no, let's fight. The vampire would just fucking kill you. Just like it was like he's in like a different league. Like there was like no, it's like no way Geralt could beat that vampire. Just I think it's like an elder vampire. I don't know, but it was so like cool and stuff. It was like damn, Geralt is a monster in of itself, but they're like fucking vampires that just mollywop his ass. Uh, Disadvantages: silver in certain holy counters, sunlight exposures. The sunlight exposure hinders them. They have the moral consequences. Some vampires have the moral consequences of harming humans. Werewolves in this universe: raw physical power and ferocity, brutal, relentless assaults, some pack tactics. Disadvantages for the werewolves in the Witcher universe: loss of control during transformations, vulnerability to silver, distrust from humans and vampires. Um, yeah, they're dangerous, but they often have like they're tragic figures with a complex backstory. Um, so that's all the ones I'm gonna list for now. I'm gonna get into. I'm gonna drum off whether I would want to be a vampire or a werewolf in these certain universes. So starting with the first one. So for Dragon Age, yeah, I'd probably want to be a vampire. You know, they are just. So for most of these, I'll be honest with you, it might be vampire. Yes, I'm a dog, but I mean, yeah, the vampires just their arsenal is just too cold to like not choose them. Like, unless I'm feeling like frat boy, I'm not choosing the werewolves probably. Even though I think that they are cool as shit. So yeah, for the Dragon Age, give me the vampires, man. For the Skyrim, as much as I want to choose the werewolf, and I do choose a werewolf in every single playthrough, I'm not gonna lie. If I were to live in this universe, I would rather be a vampire, just because they don't have like they have the disadvantage of being harmed by the sun, even though the sun doesn't do any actual damage. It just prevents them from healing. But like, yeah, I think I want to be a vampire in the Skyrim universe, definitely. Like, it's like a 90% chance if I were to live in there. Just yeah, because the werewolves have to like they go through this whole ordeal, the transformations, and if you read like if there are like some books scattered around in the game, like if you read like some testimonies from like werewolves in their human form, they'll be like writing and be like, no, like the transformation fucking hurts, and like when I go back to human form, I have like fucking swelling and shit and bruises and whatever. Like, yeah, no, it's painful. I'm like, I ain't trying to deal with all that, bro. Just give me the vampire. For the Twilight series, give me the vampires, man. They don't actually get harmed. They just, the biggest thing with these Twilight vampires is like they just number one, being discreet, because if the Venator find out you're being reckless, they're gonna come, they'll send send their messenger to go kill you or whatever. Like, that's gonna be my biggest worry. The werewolves, too hot-headed. Most of them can't control their emotions, it looks like, and it's just like, yeah, I ain't trying to deal with it. Again, if I'm feeling frat boy, man, I'll go out and, I'll do some dumb shit, because you know how frat boys be, just, whatever, But yeah, no, I mean, I'll just be a vampire, honestly. Because also, they got powers, like, these werewolves ain't got powers, other than the transformation and the heightened senses or whatever. For the Underworld series, I think I would choose a werewolf. They make it seem like, or I'm sorry, lichen or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I think I wouldn't mind being a lichen in the Underworld universe. So, just because they are like, they put up a very good fight against the vampires, like to the point where they are like afraid, like they're purposely keeping these things prisoner just because they are afraid of them, and they're like have such a like, again, they're very controlling, like they want that leash tight on their ass. For the Van Helsing universe, I will go with the man. I'm gonna say werewolves as well. For the same reasons mainly. Like, the vampires seem like dicks in this universe. From what I can remember, they're just very like, and again, they made a very cool showing of the lichen / werewolves in the Van Helsing universe. So yeah, cool. So far we at like 3 for vampires and 2 for werewolves / lichens. For the Vampyr, it's gonna be a 4 for the vampires for the same reasons. For the Witcher, damn, 5. Yeah, man. For the same reasons, bro. just a wide ass arsenal and toolkit. Yeah, so overwhelmingly, I have like 5 picks for the vampires and only 2 for the lichens. And I mean those are like a hard pick for the 2 right here. Like I wouldn't mind being a vampire, but at the same time, like the biggest deal is like those sunlight disadvantages. It's funny because the only 2 I chose them for was for the Underworld and the Van Helsing universe, which is like, like some people would consider the Van Helsing one like a throwaway universe or whatever, but they just made it look really cool. So that's the only reason why I chose the lichens and dash werewolves for both of them, honestly. Like they make them look, they give respect to what the werewolves can do, I would say. But I guess if I were to like combine them for similarities, they're not, they're not too different. You're not so different, you and I, type shit. They're both enhanced, long-lived, non-human predators with like powerful abilities. They both have specific weaknesses, silver, holy countermeasures, or sunlight that differ by the lore. And they both operate within the political, factional, or moral frameworks. They're not just as monsters all the time. So, but for differences, vampires tend to lean towards like cunning and politics and longevity. The werewolves lean on brute force and pack dynamics. The transformation control varies. Vampires usually maintain control, which is like, that's a high up there. That's honestly why I choose vampires mainly. The werewolves often lose control in their wolf form, which is a big disadvantage. Tone and focus vary by title. Like in the Twilight series, you get like romance and ethics or whatever. In the RPGs, like Vampyr and The Witcher, you get the action, aristocrats, and in the Underworld and Van Helsing. But yeah, I mean, as much as I love my werewolves, the vampires repertoire is just too vast in almost every verse. I mean, the vampires have the long lifespan, political influence, and ability to blend into human society. The feeding can fuel vitality and their magic, depending on, how often you do it, of course. The more you do it, the more, powers you get, So they have strong options for diplomacy, subterfuge, or targeted strikes, which makes them like the perfect assassin, if I'm being honest. Not that not like I want to go off killing people, but like, hey, bro, you dangerous. Like you have that option, Have like a little political target that you want out the way. Just yes, the vampires have the vulnerability to sunlight in many settings, but they have the holy water, silver countermeasures, and the moral human consequences to manage as well. But the only primary advantage to the werewolves is usually raw power and the pack tactics. Them being less adaptable across these diverse worlds is really the biggest downside to me. Like, honestly, they're cool, but so are the vampires. And you might be able to ore farm better as a vamp kid anyway. So, I'm talking my thing bellowing in the wind, bro. Like, I'm cold. I know I am. That being said, as much as I love my pack hounds, the vampires are more diverse in their power sets, and overall far more flexible. That's it. Enjoy your October. Enjoy your Halloween. Enjoy your holiday, whatever. And dear Cuddies and Cuddettes, if you like what you saw and heard, please leave a like and comment. Let me know why. If you disliked anything or found something contentious, leave a comment. Let me know why. Subscribe to the channel for more. Feel free to comment or email a topic you'd like me to discuss. I'm out.